David Morgan with Money and Metals for the week ending May 22nd, 2015. Starting with the currency markets, Chief of Bundesbank Jens Wiedmann told Reuters that China's renminbi needs to be liquid and freely convertible for a major reserve currency and needs to be included in the International Monetary Fund's global currency basket and would be if these conditions are met. Analysts say Beijing has made huge strides in recent years in its push for more formal international recognition of the renminbi. The special drawing rights currency, the IMF's official unit of account, currently is comprised of US dollars, the euro, British pounds, and the Japanese yen. The US Senate on Friday rejected a push to beef up rules against currency manipulation in a key trade bill, avoiding clash with the Obama administration and US trade partners. The Senate voted 51 to 48 against an amendment that would have allowed sanctions against countries that deliberately weaken their currencies to make their exports cheaper. Speculators scaled back their bullish bets on the US dollar in the last week, pushing the currency's net long position to the lowest level in over 9 months, according to Reuters calculations and data from the CFTC. Fed policymakers at their April 28th and 9th meeting said they would like to see further economic improvement in the United States before ending the zero interest rate policy. The Bank of Japan is set to maintain its massive monetary stimulus and may offer a slightly more upbeat view of the economy. Governor Kubota, and I butchered that, is expected to repeat that Japan will see inflation hit the 2% target around the first half of the next fiscal year, which begins April 2016. In other news, the euro climbed to a high of 111 against the US dollar last Thursday, pulling away from Wednesday's 3-week trough of 110. And at last stood at 111, flat for that day. German Chancellor Angela Merkel and French President Hollande met with Greek Prime Minister for a 2-hour meeting during an EU summit in Riga with a friendly and constructive talk focused on Athens completing the current bailout. We'll have to watch that one very closely. Investors remained wary ahead of a speech by the ECB, the European Central Bank President, Mario Draghi, who along with other central bankers will be addressing the ECB forum on the topic of inflation and unemployment in Europe. Separately, Federal Reserve Chair Janet Yellen will be speaking at the U.S. Economic Outlook before the Greater Providence Chamber of Commerce Economic Outlook Luncheon this week. Moving on to metals news, gold held steady above the $1,200 an ounce level through last Friday, but was on course for its steepest weekly decline in 4 weeks as the dollar regained momentum, hurting the metal's safe haven status. However, the previous week, both gold and silver made significant up moves, trading higher 4 days in a row, and that hasn't been seen for quite some time. Gold is still holding the critical $1,200 level, which we will watch very closely for you. The U.S. dollar gained over 2% against a basket of major currencies this last week, snapping a 5-week losing streak. Investor sentiment towards gold has turned more bearish as prices have fallen from the current 3-month highs reached earlier, as I indicated. Holdings in the Spider Gold Trust, the world's largest gold-backed exchange-traded fund, slid to their lowest level in 4 months on Wednesday last week. Pay attention to this as the physical gold market is critical and few analysts will talk about it. However, there is pressure in the physical gold market, and some nation states and more are repatriating their gold holdings. Gold continues to be drawn toward the critical $1,200 level, and the metal has fallen to a range of no more than 3% either side of the $1,200 level since mid-March. We're waiting to see it break, and we think it's going to break to the upside, still holding there, and will continue to do so. Time will tell. In other gold news, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange is developing a European gold futures contract for their customers in London. This could present a direct challenge to London's traditional cash market. The contract would mirror the existing futures traded on the COMEX, which has 100-ounce contract size and typically trading volumes between 15 and 20 million ounces per day. As we know, the COMEX is the world's most liquid gold pricing mechanism, essentially setting the benchmark for prices globally. COMEX futures are deliverable at COMEX warehouses, and London futures would mean taking delivery at the London vault. Potentially, the new exchange could see a lot of futures being delivered if customers have and want their London gold. The CME had no comment. One senior precious metals trader at a bank said a move into a cleared platform was inevitable given the greater regulatory scrutiny in the gold market. Quote, "Whether this is the right solution remains to be seen," unquote, the trader said, but, quote, "You can't operate in an over-the-counter environment as we have been for much longer. The regulatory demands will force you to be on a cleared platform. Information on volumes, trade reporting, flows, all has to be out there," end quote. The CME Group, jointly with Reuters, took over the administration of the silver benchmark in August 2014, following sweeping reforms of precious metals benchmarking. That was triggered by a regulatory push for more transparency following the 2012 LIBOR interest rate rigging scandal, which saw banks stop acting as both data providers and market makers. The exchange also introduced a physically settled kilobar contract in Hong Kong earlier in the year. And lastly, BitGold has announced that it's entered into an acquisition agreement to purchase the operating and intellectual property of Gold Money, subject to regulatory approval. And again, we'll be watching that one closely for you as well. In silver news, I thought I'd discuss something that came out in silver news from the Silver Institute recently. And the title is, "Tiny Battery May Help Implant Release Antibacterial Silver Ions on Cue." What it involves is releasing silver using a small battery like you'd have in a hearing aid, but it has to do with transplants and implants. And what happens is the silver is released using the battery electrically, and this kills about 99% of the bacteria around the operation, be it an implant, and it basically rids 100% within a day or two. So it's something that's very, very much beneficial to anybody that's having some type of implant surgery. And just to give you an idea of how this is, more than 1 million joint replacement surgeries are performed annually in the United States, and infection control has always been an issue, which physicians pay close attention to because obviously they require a sterile situation or you're not going to heal properly, and it's usually done with antibiotics. With the silver system I just outlined, it would greatly reduce the use of antibiotics, and the healing rate and recovery period would be greatly enhanced. So another little tidbit about silver for those out there watching Money and Metals. And that's it for this week.